You know, we're about to talk about something that's really hard to talk about, to the point where I might get canceled, labeled, smeared, attacked, harassed. And yet, what I've seen this week makes me so adamant to post this and to talk about this. Nothing will get me to not talk about this. The question that I want to ask today, and you might have seen by the title, and I'm not surprised if you don't even watch this for a while, because it's such a title, right? But is it blood libel if it's true? Now, to explain what blood libel is for people who are unaware, that is the term used for when people, with their hatred for Jewish people, smear them and say that they're doing ritual murder to non-Jewish people, murder for rituals. It's been used for about 600 to 700 years during persecutions and pogroms and making excuses to rise tension. Now, blood libel's mainly been used to talk about blood, killings, ritual murder, poisoning wells, and today, just documenting Palestinians being raped in prisons like Sde Teiman and Megiddo, and having children in Ofer prison. But I digress. What we want to talk about today is the story in the New York Times, not even in a main page or that close to the front, but in an opinion piece in the back. And it's talking about 14 different people who have given their testimonies to him about their time in the prison, their sexual abuses, their assaults. You have people that had batons shoved up their ass. You had carrots shoved up their ass. You had people that had female guards hold their dicks and squeeze, saying, "This is mine now." You had men holding dicks and squeezing, holding balls and squeezing, and then another guy kicks your dick repeatedly. Guy said that days later he was peeing blood, urinating blood. You had people that have electrocuted genitalia, just straight up torture. All of it straight up torture. You have sprays being put on the backside of people, so the dogs. You have so much fucked up shit primarily going on in Sde Teiman. Sde Teiman is the main prison where these things really first start happening, and then from there it starts leaking into other prisons. Footage gets out, things get out. It starts mostly, a lot of this dark shit really started at Sde Teiman. And for the record, this is nothing new. Al Jazeera reported on this in 2024. There's been lawyers who've been reporting on this all throughout 2025. I have a few downloaded on my computer just to archive. I'll go ahead and put the few that I know I have here. They started asking me, where are the hostages? Or should we rape you? They began hitting me and slapping me across the face. I told them we have nothing. We were asleep safely, me and my children. Around 5:30 a.m., special forces stormed in, disguised as women, around 60 soldiers. They stormed our house, and my husband went to see what was happening, but the soldiers shot him and he was killed right there, in front of our children. All 5 of them watched their father fall to the ground lifeless. Then they started interrogating and beating me inside the house. Even before taking me away, I told them there was nothing, but they kept searching, tossing everything. Thank God they didn't find anything. Their entire operation turned out to fail. I was severely tortured. As a woman, they tortured me. Those who claim they weren't tortured, they treat women as first-class targets. They kept me in a dark room, interrogating me, beating me, hanging me. And I was tortured with electricity. They brought my son with me. He's just a child, only 13. They kept him in one room and me in another. We were denied access to lawyers. No visits were allowed, and there were no court hearings. During my arrest, I was beaten and insulted. They poured fuel over me and tried to set me on fire. After that, they took me to the outskirts of Gaza, to the Sde Teiman prison. We were blindfolded and handcuffed. We stayed there for 25 days with only a mat barely half a centimeter thick to sit on. Only half a centimeter. During one of the torture sessions, they broke the bone in my chest. During interrogation, they even used inhumane methods, unimaginable. There wasn't a single trace of humanity, not a shred. They would torture us by cuffing our hands and feet to a small chair, pour cold water over us, and turn the air conditioner to the lowest they could. and leave us shivering. Of course, there was no medical care, there's no hygiene, nothing. We have no choice, and the suffering was beyond words, real endless suffering. We were always hungry, the food was extremely scarce, none of the basic necessities of life were available. I lost about 25 to 30 kilos. Some of the prisoners lost 40 to 45 kilos. Prisoners would often faint. I myself went through a period where I couldn't even stand without feeling dizzy. After that, I was transferred to the Negev prison. Diseases like scabies and boils were widespread. There was no treatment. When you go to the doctor and ask for help, he refuses to treat you. Subjected to a torture session, where they shot him with rubber bullets. Of course, they made us suffer even more, pure torment. One of the soldiers pressed his boots on my wound. And when I got home, I was shocked to find that my son had been martyred. Killed. My son Mahmoud was sleeping in a tent when he was killed. He was just a 13-year-old child. I found my family living in a tent in my home. Everything I had was gone. For us prisoners, that punishment was nothing. There's sexual punishment, greater beatings. Nothing was more humiliating than when they make me take my clothes off, or when they inserted this object into my ass, or when a young female soldier kept touching. There's even more and more. For sexual torture, they used to call out prisoners individually. When we were in Sde Teiman, we heard that they raped somebody. We went crazy when we heard that. When we heard that they actually raped them. They even raped children. I swear to God, there was a young guy from Sde Teiman who was raped. Not a young man, he was a child. He was 15 years old. I was tortured and faced hardships from the first moment I got arrested until the last moment for 8 months. Not a moment passed without us being tortured. If you ask to visit a doctor, they might allow you to do so after you ask 20 or 30 times. The army would come to take you to the clinic. You wanted to visit the doctor because you feel unwell, but after the army transport, you will have broken ribs and you're bleeding. Just while being transported from where you have been to the clinic, you would need to go to the hospital again due to the beatings that you'd receive while being transported. The interrogation process was really difficult. They used electrocution, and they would strip us of our clothes and make you stand under very cold air conditions. They would take off your clothes and say this is a punishment. They took off our clothes next to the female soldiers. The female soldiers would hit us and search us. They hit us on our private parts using searching equipment, a metal rod this big, metal detector, and hit you on your private parts. Once he was putting stickers on me, suddenly I started shaking. He started electrocuting me on my hands here. This is a mark that's not healing. My hands were tied. He electrocuted my private parts. He hit me on my private parts and electrocuted me there many times. I would faint for a minute, but the minute you faint, the soldiers standing behind you would beat you or pour cold water on you.
Really started by accident well over a year ago when a friend of mine, childhood friend actually, was stationed at the Sde Teiman base. And at that time, I was a fairly passionate Zionist, supporter of Israel. And he told me, listen, there's things going on in this Sde Teiman prison that you will absolutely not believe. They're so awful. And so I looked into it, and he put me in touch with two guards who had worked there. And they told me about all the torture that had occurred in Sde Teiman, but also some things that hadn't appeared in the media, like the fact that they were killing inmates and leaving them around the others in order to serve as a warning to them and that sort of thing. And I published it on X, and it got a pretty big response. And that played a very large role in my moving away from Zionism. I kept in touch with one of the two guards. I talked to another. I was introduced to another by the guard that I had talked to. I had seen the reports that dogs had been used to sexually assault inmates in Sde Teiman. So I just asked them about it, and to my, I don't know, I guess surprise, I don't know, horror, they both confirmed it. One said that he'd seen dogs being used, and the other said that he'd heard talk about dogs being used. From my experience, when inmates in Israeli prisons testify to something, it is true, and it almost always is confirmed by the facts. After Zionists and Israel supporters deny it and say that it's just hearsay, it's almost always supported by the facts. Believe the victims, especially when there's several testimonies. The testimony is consistent, it's believable, and guards confirmed it to me, so I'm convinced. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone boasting about this. We've already had some cases of settlers and soldiers arresting Palestinians and threatening them that they will be raped and that they will be raped by dogs, specifically.
And you know, to call it blood libel, to compare it to the past saying of, you know, ritual murder, poisoning wells, killing children, to say those things and comparing it to documenting Palestinian trauma in your fucking jails, to just say that, oh, you're just giving fuel to the flame of anti-Semites or people who dislike Israel, and because you dislike Israel and it's the country, the state, the national identity is Jewish, you must hate all Jews. But truthfully, it's just seeing what Israel and Israelis do. It does not happen in Jewish people's name all across the world. There are millions of people who don't want that happening in their name and don't believe the state of Israel represents them as Jewish people. You know, a finger and a thumb. A thumb is a finger, but a finger is not a thumb. That's kind of how Zionism is. You could be a Jew, but not all Jewish people are Zionists.
אני לא ציוני, אני יהודי.
But to get on topic, I really want to ask the question, is it a blood libel if it's true? We already have footage of Palestinians being raped by Israeli soldiers, not even just putting stuff in there, but actually enjoying it themselves.
And we have been clear and consistent with Israel that it must treat all detainees humanely and with dignity in accordance with international law.
אני לא יודע אם יודעים, אבל יש אירוע כרגע בשדה תימן שמשטרה צבאית הגיעו לעצור חיילים ששמרו על מחבלי נוח'בה. טרלול שהמדינה שלנו נכנסת אליו סביב הסיפור הזה הוא מטורף וצריך להפסיק אותו, ואני חושב שצריך פה לתת דוגמה אישית, ואני אומר עכשיו, ואני קורא לחברי הקואליציה לעשות כמוני, אני קם ואני יוצא מפה ואני לא הולך להצביע יותר על שום דבר עד שהסיפור הזה והטרלול הזה שיש מי שבפרקליטות חושב שאפשר לבוא ולעצור חיילים על דברים שעושים למחבלי נוח'בה, לא נגמר. להמשיך כרגיל.
להכניס מקל לרקטום של בן אדם, זה לגיטימי?
כן, אם הוא נוח'בה, הכל לגיטימי לעשות לו. הכל. הכל.
And that footage went viral a year ago, and the Israeli government dropped the case on all 6 of those guys. They became national superstars on TV, and, you know, being as flagrant as they can be with their language. And, you know, the Israeli TV, they love that shit. You see flagrant language all the time. And they dropped the cases against those 6 guys. And they put up a case against the female who leaked that footage.
Well, what's happened to the soldiers involved in that? As I understand it, the charges have been dropped, haven't they?
Yes, the charges were dropped. The only person who faced real consequences for that was Yifat Yerushalmi, the military attorney who leaked the video.
How does some of the cases you have collated quite extraordinary. One man who was raped by a dog, he recalled that when he screamed, the guards beat him for disturbing the dog. Another victim, he emphasized that the dog appeared trained and knew exactly what it was doing. Is this systematic, or are these rogue elements?
It's clearly systematic. I don't believe that Netanyahu and Katz ever sat there and decided that dogs should be used to rape inmates. What I think happened is that some commanders who were in charge of the dogs thought this would be a good idea. They did, and no one stopped them. These cases are almost exclusively in Sde Teiman that I'm aware of. There are a couple of cases elsewhere. So it's systematic, it's Sde Teiman for sure. And anything that happens at Sde Teiman tends to spread elsewhere. That's sort of ground zero.
Not to mention the protest for the right to rape Palestinians and the protest to let them out. Never have we ever seen a country do that. Never. And so we already had that. And we have these, the hostage releases of 2025, and through the many other times that we've had these stories come out publicly through documentation. You know what? I don't even mean to do a call to action to my previous video, but if you've seen my recent video on the policy enabling Palestinians to lose their land to the West Bank settlers and the encroaching military, zones, then you would have seen a couple segments of a Palestinian activist, Issa Amro, who's been arrested probably 50 to 80 times. And in the last 4 to 5 years, he himself has his own stories. So, whether you want to call these blood libel or accounts of Palestinian trauma, I'll leave that up to you. It really shows more about who you are than it shows who I am. But really what I'm asking today is it blood libel if it's true? Because something else I said there, poisoning of wells. You know, one might ask themselves, what was Cast Thy Bread in 1948? And you'll learn. It was a military operation that the Israelis did. And before I even get into what that military operation is, maybe we should talk about the meaning of cast thy bread. And it comes from Ecclesiastes in the King James Bible, and it's cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days. Sowing seeds and giving generously. It's supposed to be talking about giving, generosity, faith, charity. But what was cast thy bread in 1948? And the operation aimed to contaminate drinking water in wells in Palestinian villages with typhoid, led by figures like David Ben-Gurion, resulting in severe illness for the population. And really, I didn't have to go into explaining that biblical verse, but there's another video that I have planned that is the reason why I knew that. And so I just wanted to share that here while I could. And I really want to leave this video where it is without doing too much more, because this is all I'm trying to ask a couple questions on, not much further, at least in this regard tonight. But what I saw in regards to the smearing of this article, when there are hundreds of more stories, and there are thousands more silenced, you know, people need to see more cases like Hind Jobs.
نقرأ أنا وياكي آية قرآن ونقرأ قرآن وأدعي شوي. شو رأيك؟ نحكي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم. برافو عليكي، هيك حافظة. ايش يا عمري؟
That was like a 5-year-old, like a 3-year-old. Her sister called the Red Crescent ambulance team after the mother and the uncle had already been shot. The aunt and the uncle, I forget the two in the front seats. And then the tank kills the sister. And then Hindrejab picks up the phone. And within minutes you hear her get shot too. And then silence. You know, there's so much dark shit out there that gets buried or that the average folk don't really hear about, but the people chronically online, they do hear about. And truthfully, we need to do more archiving and talking about these things. But on this video here, I want to ask, is it blood libel if it's true? Was cast thy bread blood libel? Because I have no doubt, and I agree, that the 1600s and the 1700s and the 1400s and the 1500s, yeah, there's probably a lot of bullshit that was said then. But what we're seeing now, military operations that you lied about for 80 years that come out as true, are we going to call those blood libel like you have for 80 years at this point? When you have articles of rape, and you have Israeli soldiers talking about the rape, and you have footage of the rapes, and you have jokes of the rapes being made publicly by Israelis. When you have all these things going on, and you have people on national TV talking about it on Channel 13 and such. When you have these things going on, is it blood libel to talk about it? Is that how we're really going to position and angle an attack?
Accuse the New York Times of blood libel! Send out your reporters! Send out your reporters! You need to fire your reporters. You need to fire Kristof! Fire Kristof! Fire Kristof! Fire Kristof! Fire Kristof!
ابن شرموطة، قول أنا أخو شرموطة، قول إنه نتنياهو هناك أختي. الجيش الإسرائيلي عام إسرائيل حي. يلا عيد وراي، عام إسرائيل حي، عام إسرائيل حي. ضلك 100 مرة، تقول 100 مرة، بعد يقول لك لا ما عجبني، عيدها كمان مرة، 100 مرة، وأنت بضلك تعيد في 100 مرة بتلاقي حالك أنت واقف ساعتين هنا. يعني إيش؟
Because if we're going to talk about the weaponizing of certain events as adding fuel to the flame, you know, we could do that with everything going on with the Islamophobia, but we don't, because you only want to protect yourself and your own skin. And the sad thing is it's defending evil people, and it's defending the people in your community that you should be willing to punish. If you see your brothers doing something wrong, you should call them out on it. If you see somebody shooting people, assaulting people, sexually assaulting people, do you really want them to represent you? And then if this isn't the video for it, but the next video we make is, but not only do you want them to represent you, but then you turn around and say that your state, your country represents all Jewish people. When that country came to be in 1948 through the expulsion of 750,000 people, but not to even mention that your own Torah talks about not forcing the return. And all of this is a disgrace to the true religion. All of this weaponizing in the media, this flagrant bullshit, is a true disgrace. I'll leave it there. I really just wanted to talk about this, get it off my chest, because what we're seeing in the media in regards to what we just talked about and the media perspective on this, it's very disappointing to see what's being said by people like the Israeli Foreign Ministry on X.